Nick,
Mm.
you were in construction, you were briefly in law, and now you are in retail in pricing. So, throughout all of your career, you have involved in the key function known as project management. So, tell us, what does a project manager do, and what exactly is project management? That
You
faces
could
priceless. Faces priceless.
you could say it's orchestrating. You could say it's herding cats. The a clever way of putting it is you're the conductor of a beautiful orchestra, when in reality it's chasing madly after dozens of cats in an old lady's home, and all you want to do is give them a bowl of milk, and all they want to do is scratch up all the furniture. A project manager ultimately determines how something is done and when it's done, and sometimes who's going to be doing it. They're going to put together a project plan or from within a scope and build out or make sure that something's done on time, on budget, and to the project specifications. And that really translates no matter what kind of project it is, whether it's construction or whether it's a project in retail. You're going to have a scope, and especially in a waterfall uh, type of project, you're going to have a deadline and you're going to have a budget. And the project manager ultimately is going to be responsible for managing the ambiguity within that scope and managing unforeseen circumstances or risks associated with that scope that occur. So, for example, let's just pick a retail project, doing a modular change. A project manager might be in charge of making sure that all the inventory is going to be available on time when it's supposed to be there, that labor is going to be on time and scheduled for the period at which that change must occur. They're going to make sure that the fixtures are either ordered or in inventory and delivered or assembled by the subcontractor at the time at which it occurs, and that all of these things occur according to the relay schedule, meaning the change that you're going to be making on the shelves. This is very broad, like don't take this too literally, but let's just say that that would be the equivalent of a project manager in that scope.
So, that being said, there is a difference in different industries based on how you deal with people, how you manage different components of the project, etc., etc. So, what is the key difference in being a project manager in a mid-sized construction firm versus in a legal field versus in the Fortune 500 in the retail space?
In a Fortune 500 company and in a legal firm, people call you sir. In construction, they call you every other name possible and try to be intimidating as possible or try to hold their end of the contract as firmly as they can. Meaning, is in a legal profession, you're going to be working with a lot of lawyers who you are going to see quite regularly in court. You may be working on the same side one time and with different parties on another. You travel in very similar circles. You are incentivized to be social and treat people with respect, both informally and by the formal structures. In a Fortune 500 company, it depends, but depending on the corporate culture, respect for the individual, especially in large matrix and organizations where there's not a lot of explicit authority, treating people well is paramount, especially not even when, especially when things go outside of scope or outside of plan. That's when truly working together with other people in a cross-functional manner or with people who don't report to you or don't have authority for really plays an important part of how you behave. When it comes to contracts, it depends on the relationship.
You mean construction or contract?
Yeah, contracts in general, or contractors and construction in particular, it really depends on the relationship. You can have both relationships with people you contract with that are recurring, or that you have an ongoing relationship over multiple jobs with, or you can have one off or infrequent relationships with. And how you treat people and how you end up being treated is loosely defined on those relationships. Meaning, a company that knows that they're the only game in town and that this is the only job they're going to be doing for you is probably going to be much more difficult to deal with, consider it or not, than one who you have multiple ongoing relationships with, and the way the outcome of one is going to determine how the outcome of the next one happens. And we're talking whether it comes into scheduling, whether it comes in how you treat people on scope changes, or how even you deal with financial shortcomings of a job and how you split that up,
Game theory in play. I love
basically.
it.
Whereas in a matrix organization, you're going to be dealing with these people again, just like in a legal sense. You may not work directly with that team, but people move around a lot, and your reputation follows.
You will also briefly function as a product manager. So, what is the difference when people think about project manager versus product manager?
You could say herding cats without a clear goal. Uh, so you don't know what you're going to feed them, but you know that you don't want them to scratch the furniture. Uh, where project management's handling the how and the when, a product manager is really trying to understand what it is that they're trying to build. And the incentives are actually, they both have manager, they both start with a P. They're actually very different in that the team that a product manager is working for is trying to understand and take feedback from a customer and build a roadmap to, say, a product that they envision this customer will want to use or will meet that customer's needs. There is not necessarily a defined ending point. There's not necessarily a defined end product. That's part of what the product manager is trying to come up with. It also means that what they're evaluating the success of is different. Whereas a project manager is going to be evaluating success on their gap or hit their plan, whether they're ahead or behind on a schedule, and whether or not their resources are being managed appropriately to scope. A product manager is going to be looking at, is the product that I'm actually building going to be used? How much is it going to be used? Is it going to be useful for the things that these customers are going to do? So think engagement with the product that you're actually creating. And that could be in terms of revenue, that could be in terms of um, actual usage statistics. For example, let's take a broad step of engagement on a website. So impressions, click-through rates would be something that a product manager building some sort of front end would be able to compare their product online versus something else. But those types of metrics are more important for a product manager.
So, what are the essential skills or the required attributes for someone to become a successful project manager? Feels like the ability to work with people well, the ability to focus on the end goal and be able to work backwards
Both of
feels
them,
important.
both of them work backwards. Number
Mhm.
one, both of them have to deal with people who have different interests and different end goals, right? Each team has their own goal. It doesn't always align with the project goal or the product goal. And it's the manager's job in order to align those interests and focus them and make sure that they are all moving towards that common goal. It's a very much a people-driven process people-driven skill that's required for both.
So, in terms of in the age of AI, right? So, part of AI's strength is automating, tedious task, and it seems like strongly overlap for some of the key functions for the project manager. Do you agree with that statement? Or in the stage of a broader question will be, in the stage of AI, is a project manager truly is essential to the project? And if you want to continue to stay in the field, what are the key requirements that you must possess to win in this stage of AI?
Depends on the level of adoption that the industry has. Depends on the industry itself and the tasks that that project manager is going to be using or engaging in. I know that's not a very satisfying answer.
So let's just pick a specific example. So the adoption rate for AI in the construction field is roughly about 10%,
I would say lower than that.
versus in retail is roughly about 40%. So say that you are a project manager in a Fortune, company. So what would you do? What is the skills that is essential for you as a human to succeed in this role? Is this role even necessary?
Absolutely, because ultimately you're dealing with people and different workflows that need to be aligned. And AI can't necessarily negotiate that or negotiate ambiguities that aren't inputted into it directly. Uh, Especially when you're dealing with a large number of data sets that aren't connected and large number of processes that aren't connected.
Picking up as the modular example,
Yeah.
right? You are the project manager. The key functional areas that influence whether this mod relay is successful is the modular drawing team, the store operation team, the financial planner that's trying to send clearance markdown into the store, as well as the central strategy team that is responsible for the tool building, as well as the strategy coordination.
That's a fairly good example. One way to put where the project manager would stand in that an LLM probably could not is when identifying gaps to plan, coming up with alternative scenarios and being able to contact and negotiate across those different business units and finding uh, ways that all of these can adapt together in a short amount of time.
So to
That's
win, one must identify the bottleneck slash pain point in different processes, as well as in different teams, and to come up with innovative solutions or common sense solutions sometimes to work with different teams to propel them into the same goal.
correct.
So I don't know anybody growing up, boy or girl, that when they're growing up say that I want to grow up to be a project manager. More than likely they won't even know, what these roles entail. But say the young person in their late teens that trying to get into this field, under the influence or under the age of AI, what advice would you give them?
AI is going to increase the bandwidth at which any project manager can run. The ability to pull metrics of how a project is going and should ultimately close the time for a decision loop for any project manager. So the expectation should be to be able to move faster and make decisions, correct decisions, with a shorter amount of time frame with larger amounts of information. So practicing that skill of being able to, number one, ask the right questions to the right systems and being able to get that, synthesize it, and make a decision based off of those. And then onboarding your partner teams.
When you say onboarding, what do you mean?
Informing them of what you see, why you see it that way, and why you are seeking their alignment, ultimately their coordination on whatever changing conditions you see.
So today we talk about what does it take to become a project manager, the difference in between product versus project manager, and being a project manager in different fields, legal versus retail versus construction. So if you want to give a 1 minute key takeaway for this conversation, what would it be?
Read Tony Fidel's book, Build. That's a very good example of the life of a product manager and the unique skills and thought processes that they need to do, that they need to perform. There's no better person that can put that than Fidel. When it comes to project management, look at whatever anyone at any given company is doing and assume that they're doing it absolutely horribly. And that project management ultimately is about building and defining a system and following that system and adjusting that system as new uh, pieces of information come out. So it's both being able to rigidly adhere to a goal and being as flexible as possible in the route to achieving that goal.